So I was thinking a little bit harder about the 2019 Mac Pro, and I think I was wrong about it. I originally said that the Mac Pro was irrelevant because I thought it's irrelevant for me and I wasn't super happy about it, but I thought a little bit harder and I think that I was wrong. And let me explain. So, this video is titled 2019 Mac Pro: The Cost of Expansion. And basically, what I mean by that is why it's so expensive. And the main reason, and pretty much the only reason, is because of the expansion. Let me explain. So, sitting behind me are two different computers. One of them is an Apple computer, MacBook Pro, which is a pretty good representation of what Apple computers are. And the next behind this monitor is a custom built Windows PC. So there are two big differences between these computers. One of them is that one runs Mac OS and one of them doesn't. One of them runs Windows or potentially like Linux, and the other runs Mac OS. The next is that one of them is upgradable and the other one is not. And this is a pretty big trend with Apple computers where no computer Apple's made since 2012 has been upgradable through internal expansion. Thunderbolt 1, Thunderbolt 2, and Thunderbolt 3 sort of introduced external expansion, but external expansion is exceptionally expensive because you have to buy, you have to buy something like this, which is an eGPU, and this allows for external PCIe slots using either Thunderbolt 1, Thunderbolt 2, or Thunderbolt 3 on either your Mac or any other Thunderbolt 3 enabled computer. Yes, I'm still trying to sell that 2018 MacBook Pro. But on paper, the 2019 Mac Pro is ridiculous. It's $6,000 for what is essentially a pretty meddling computer, especially since Ryzen 3rd Gen has been released. When you look at the specs, you're really buying what is essentially, not including the motherboard, but you're getting an 8-core processor, an average like RX 580. An RX 580 is a pretty average graphics card by 2019 standards. You're getting 32 gigabytes of RAM and 256 gigabytes of storage. Now, comparing that to a Windows-based computer, there's really no comparison. $6,000 on a Windows-based computer would get you far more. But do keep in mind, the most important thing that I think that a lot of people are talking about is the power supply, and not really the power supply, but what the power supply can allow, and that is the motherboard. The motherboard in this thing is pretty insane. If you look here, you can see a picture of what the motherboard on the new Mac Pro looks like. And if you count it, you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 full-size PCIe slots with one half-size PCIe slot. Now, all of these are not by 16. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4 by 16 slots, and the other ones are just by 8 PCIe slots. But do keep in mind that you are getting 7 full-size PCIe slots, and you're actually getting 8, 9 full-size PCIe slots with this MPX module. Although, do keep in mind, the only computer components that would ever be able to use that is anything Apple made. So basically what I'm saying is that it's the price of expansion. It's the price of upgradability. But that is actually a really good thing. For $6,000, what you're getting is a pretty bad computer. I mean, it's a good computer, but for $6,000, you're getting a bad computer. But you're also getting a really, really good motherboard. There are only a handful of motherboards that you can buy today that has this amount of PCIe expansion in it. Actually, most of them have less if you include the half-size PCIe slot along with the 2 MPX modules. The only ones I could find were motherboards with 7 PCIe slots with 4 by 16 and then 3 by 8. So it's pretty comparable to that. And that's a $600 motherboard right there. So obviously I'm not trying to justify the price, but I'm explaining why the price is the way that it is. But then I thought a little bit harder. I'm like, okay, expansion, that's great, but that's ridiculous. Why are they charging me so much for this expansion? Well, whether you buy the 28-core model or the 8-core model, you get this expansion potential. And that's really good because you can grow with your computer because this motherboard allows it. The motherboard is obviously overkill for most people. 8 cores is overkill for most people. But when you start to grow and when you start to need more power and you need more cores, you need more processing power, you can expand and upgrade up to that. And while 8 cores isn't great, you can go up to 28 cores. The 2010 Mac Pro had 12 cores, and at the time that was overkill. But 9 years later, 12 cores is really useful. And I imagine in 10 years, 28 cores on a CPU is going to be overkill still. So that's really good because you got this future expansion, this future upgrade potential. The storage goes up to 4 terabytes of removable SSD storage, which is great. It's also secured by the T2 chip, so I'm not exactly sure if you're going to be able to access that information unless you're using a Mac. But the fact that you can slot those out is really good for professionals because if the computer were to fail, they could just pull out the storage, plug into a new computer, and they'll be up and running again. The RAM supports up to 1.5 terabytes. Obviously, this is absurd for most people, but if you're a power user, that makes a lot of sense for you. And 1.5 terabytes of RAM for you and for me, most of the time is going to be overkill. But let's look at the company that edited the film Deadpool. So right here, you can see this right here. It says 10 Mac Pro 6,1s were burned out when making Deadpool. So what basically that means is that big companies use Macs still. I didn't think that they did, but big companies still use Macs. And that's crazy because let's look at what Deadpool was. Deadpool was a movie that grossed $783.1 million. And the budget for that movie was $58 million. Pretty good profit margin there. But let's look a little bit further into this. A fully spec 6,1 Mac Pro at the time that they made Deadpool would have cost you roughly $10,000, assuming they got the fully spec'd out model. And the reason I'm assuming that is because it's a huge production, and why wouldn't they get one of those? And they actually broke 10 of them making this film. So for them, it cost them over $100,000 to make the film Deadpool on their computers. $100,000 to me is absurd. $100,000 to most people is like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money to just throw away on computers. But let's consider what Deadpool is. At $100,000 over the course of the shoot, I imagine buying these computers while they were editing was probably a little bit annoying, but that is only 0.172%. 0.172, way less than 1% of the entire budget of the film. So for the film, it cost them way more money for extras probably than for the computer that made the film, which is absurd because they're breaking all these computers. They still kept using them, still kept using them, which is fine. Obviously, they can use whatever they want. And it only cost them 0.172% of the entire budget. To put that in perspective, they made a profit of $725 million. They could have burned through 1,000 Mac Pros, which I'm assuming would have equated to one new Mac Pro almost every single day, and they still would have made a profit of $715 million. Those computers would have cost them $10 million. So I guess people like me, it's kind of hard to understand just how much power and how much money these companies have. Because for me, $10,000, like that is a ton of money. $1,000 is a ton of money. $1 million is way beyond my realm of even being able to understand what that is. But for the company that edited Deadpool, it doesn't really matter to them because it's, well, the movie's gonna make us $700 million. And this is exactly the point of the Mac Pro. It's for these huge production companies that need powerful Macs, that use Final Cut Pro, or that use a different type of software that they just like using on Macs. And 28 cores and ridiculous processing power on the graphics side is going to help them do exactly what they need to do. And it's not a computer for you or me. I guess basically what I'm saying is that yeah, they're really expensive, and yeah, Apple is charging a lot bit of a premium for macOS and the cost of expansion. But do keep in mind, it makes a lot of sense. This computer does. No, for you and me, it doesn't. $6,000, yeah, that's a lot of money. $1,000 for a stand, that sounds funny, but put it in perspective of a company that would use a 6K display. They're only spending $5,000-$6,000 on a 6K display with the stand. For them, that's like $5 to us. You got to keep this, it's all relative. So obviously it's a lot of money, and for us sort of normies, it doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense. But Apple isn't targeting consumers on this one. They literally target consumers with every product they've ever made, and even they kind of targeted them with the old Mac Pro and kind of the new iMac Pro, although I would say that sort of got a little bit out of the realm for most people. But this new Mac Pro, for a lot of people, it's like, but you're getting way less performance and you're spending way more money. But that's sort of the point of this whole computer. The point is to spend a lot of money to get a computer that can edit a film that's going to make you millions of dollars, or to help your production company grow and grow and grow. Imagine if you had this Mac Pro with like 14 cores and the Vega 2 graphics, which is super powerful and renders everything in 10 minutes as opposed to an hour on your old Mac Pro. That is literally saving you 50 minutes. And to a company, 50 minutes is a ton of time and a ton of extra money. So yes, this computer is expensive, but you need to keep it in mind that this isn't for people like you and me who are just editing basic YouTube videos or writing basic code or maybe editing some music or just doing really basic tasks. This is for a company that's editing huge projects and huge films that cost a ton of money to make. So I was wrong about the Mac Pro. It's the cost of expansion and it's the cost of upgradability. It grows with your company. Thank you guys for watching the video. If you want to help keep this channel sponsorship free, do check out the Patreon link down below. Also, all you need to do is just hit subscribe, hit that like button, and that's enough for me. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.